'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the land, not a game piece was stirring, no dice were in hand. Gamers were waiting both near and afar for loads of new games, both indie and OSR. Each gamer was nestled or safe in their bed, oblivious to the sound of a sleigh overhead. But before jolly old St. Nick comes to visit them, first here's a podcast from 4 British men. But what's that you say? I count 5 men in all. Well, that's because we're joined by Spencer, Thrall. So sit back and listen with goodwill and cheer as we talk about what's on our wish list this year. Welcome to this special Christmas Eve episode of the Purple Worm podcast. I'm John from the Red Dice Diaries. I'm joined as ever by Dave Aldridge from D Percentile, Pete Jones from Dragon's Aria, and of course Colin Green from The Spike Pit. And we're also pleased to welcome once again our special guest Spencer, aka Thrall, from the excellent podcast Keep Off the Borderlands. And for this Christmas Eve special, we're going to be talking about what's on our gaming wish list this year. So guys, as the adverts have been telling us recently, 'tis the season, tra-la-la-la-la, and all of that sort of stuff. We're getting into the festive season. So, if you guys were writing your letter to Father Christmas, obviously, I'm assuming there's going to be some RPGs on there, because why wouldn't there be? What is the RPG stuff that you would most like to find under your tree? Assuming you are on the nice list, obviously. So, why don't we start with Dave? What would you like to see under your Christmas tree this year?
Oh, good question. Right, so there will be some RPGs, but I tend to buy all the RPGs that I want. So perhaps on my Christmas list there might be a few games that I've so far got in PDF and I've really liked, but I might yet want the hardback. And if I hadn't, can I talk about games that I happen to have accidentally bought, but I would have quite liked for Christmas?
I'm assuming that's accidentally in inverted commas. If you're on the audio version, I'm doing the inverted commas sign.
Yeah, because my accidental buy of the year that I really did kind of buy by accident. It was on a whim, and I couldn't have explained after I bought it until it arrived why I bought it. Was Zweihander, because I don't like D Percentile. I don't need a D Percentile system. I like playing Warhammer, but I had no particular attachment.
What do you mean you don't like D Percentile? Your podcast's called D Percentile.
I like to chuck that out there every now and again. Yeah. Also, I hate the D Percentile subsystem in BX as well. I could do without that. But there we go. But when I got hold of Zweihander, I really, 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 really liked it. So if I hadn't accidentally bought that, and I just got the PDF, that would be on my Christmas list, because it's the kind of thing, it's a big hefty tome, it's the kind of thing I find it hard to justify buying for myself.
Yeah.
So that would be the kind of thing that would be on my Christmas list. So that's my recommendation for other people's Christmas list. If if you're into OSR stuff, you like your D&D stuff, but you hadn't been thinking about Zweihander, I think you really should. Because it's actually surprisingly light. It's a big fat book, but actually the rules are very slim. So anyway, Zweihander is on there. Then what have I got in PDF? Okay, so I wish when I backed Old School Essentials that I'd bought the Winter's Daughter. I got the Other Adventure. I got Hole in the Oak because they were basically giving that away with it. I think everybody got that.
There's some dodgy playtesters on that one though, Dave.
Well, I did. Colin is a proofreader, credited proofreader on that.
Yep.
But I had a little flick through Winter's Daughter at Dragon Meat, and that has definitely gone on my Christmas list because it's just a beautiful. It looks exactly like one of those old nostalgic Penguin books.
Yes, yeah.
It's a really interesting decision. It's not terribly cheap. But it's got that lovely digest size format. It's got beautiful layout. I really like the layout that Gavin Norman has come up with for those old school essentials modules. I think it's well worth emulating for an old school layout. So that has gone on my list. I want that.
I was going to say, I absolutely agree there, Dave. I have got a copy. I'm planning to use it in my Castles and Crusades Middlelands game shortly. One of the things that people may or may not be aware of is the very distinctive sort of cover art that's on there. Gavin Norman of Necrotic Gnome, the same person is doing a lot of the artwork for the Dolmenwood campaign book that he's going to be releasing, I think, sometime next year.
Right, and it is a little ad for Dolmenwood if you look inside. It does, it gives you a little guide to the setting and things like that. But I don't mind that because it looks like good fun.
And I met the artist as well, which was interesting.
Nice.
Talked to him a little bit about the art style, and ashamedly, I have forgotten his name, but really nice guy. And there's layers and layers of work in that front cover. He hand creates the textures, then produces them as a layer. Scans it, produces it as a layer, and it's actually like a digital collage, and that's why you get that effect that he's got. Really loved that artwork, and super interesting guy. He was selling prints at Dragon Meet with Gavin on his stand, and that's how I got to meet up with him.
Just the cover is gorgeous.
Oh yeah. I'm just going to break in there briefly to say that we've got a message on the Twitch live stream from Goblin's Henchman where he says cherry red Speedos. So
that's what Colin's wearing, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, just to announce the winner of Guess What Colin's wearing below the level of the camera. So well done, Goblin's Henchman. You can tick off your What's Colin Wearing bingo card at home. So
he sussed me out.
That's it. You've been the secrets out.
I'll give you just one more thing on my Christmas list, and this is off the back of Spencer extolling its virtues on his show, but Shivering Circle is one that I've got on PDF and I absolutely love, and I will be picking up, I'll be putting on my Christmas list to pick up in a physical copy. I think unusually and bizarrely it's a pay what you want in physical copy on Drive-Thru RPG, so I don't know why I didn't do it in the first place, but I think it's worth paying a good amount for that game. I'm very excited to hold the physical copy.
So let's move over to yourself, Spencer. In terms of RPG Christmas wishes, what are you hoping for from the jolly fat man? I don't mean myself, obviously, this Christmas.
Well, I was one of those fools who backed the old school essentials on PDF. So what I think I might do is invest in getting the hard copies. Whether I go for the box or the tome, I'm not sure. I probably wouldn't get both, but one or the other. I can't really make up my mind.
I will say I was lucky enough to I backed the tome, and then I was lucky enough that my wife bought me the box set for my birthday, and going for either of them, both of them are beautiful. The tome is beautiful, the box set's lovely, so I don't think you can go far wrong with either of those.
Can I cut in here just playfully and ask if anybody is having buyer's remorse, right? Because it is still BX, right? The thief is still busted because those weird percentile things don't work. The saves are still bizarre, right? Is anybody thinking, well, I've doubled down on this, I've gone mad for this, but essentially it is still BX?
No, not for
I'll
me.
tell you what.
Big no. Yeah.
Because I think it's the nostalgia, because BX was the game I cut my teeth on and introduced me to the game. So for me, it's having a good copy of my Tatty BX, and it's still, no matter how broken it is, it's still my game.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, obviously it's been such a sort of labour of love on the author's behalf, and you can tell the sheer enthusiasm that Gavin has for it, and it's been so well produced and so nicely produced that it's just a joyous thing to have and read. But, and as you know, I'm an outspoken critic of what I consider to be the fairly naff sort of percentage skill system for Thieves. But to be honest, when I'm sort of reading the old school essentials, I'm like, you know what? It's not the worst thing in the world, is it?
So you don't just think, oh well, you don't just think, oh, maybe you could have just rationalised the experience totals for levelling up, made it less arbitrary.
Goblin's Henchman has made a good point there. Sorry to just cut in. He says, I think some people were seduced by the box set, and I'm quite happy to hold my hand up and say, yeah, I was seduced by the box set. I couldn't have been more seduced by it if it was stood on a corner of the street wearing
cherry red speedos.
Yeah, if it was wearing cherry red speedos and negligee and beckoning to me seductively like Jessica Rabbit or some shit. Yeah. I mean, I don't, aside from old school essentials, I don't own any box sets just because previously I've been like, what's the point? It costs me extra for the box. Whereas I don't know exactly what it was about old school essentials, but as soon as I had BX Essentials, the sort of previous version of it, and loved those little sort of booklets. And as soon as they said, oh, we're doing hardback versions, they're going to come in a nice box, I was just like, yeah, as soon as that Kickstarter comes out, I'm having it.
I'm just being playful. I
think it's a great question, Dave. And I would say, yes, I have had my doubts and thought, do you know, I got super excited and stoked about this, and actually, I don't know about this BX now, but
want to sell it.
But I'm gonna say, I didn't know. I didn't go full on super mad. I just got the box set. PDFs were available. I didn't need to do any of that. But I like the idea. See, the box with the modular books with a potential for expansion, because one of the books that impressed me so much was his advanced fantasy genre rules with the advanced classes and all that. And he won me over with his treatment of the way he converted advanced classes into a basic style of D&D, because when I was playing and it was first edition of AD&D, I picked up that DMG and flicked through it and thought, that is a load of old bunk. I'm having none of it.
Yeah.
And I dropped it and I played basic, and that's what I did. And later on, AD&D leaked in as second edition because, we were kids and we thought, oh yeah, more classes. And then there was all the splat books and all that. And just Gavin's treatment of it, I'd sort of thought, I don't want that advanced fantasy one. But I was involved with play testing that because he used the advanced classes in another scenario after we'd done Winter's Daughter, and I thought, oh yeah, that's so simple. He's just made that really feel like that, how I imagine that character class, with a minimum of rules, and that sold me on it. And I thought, yeah. And then if he does other stuff down the line, they're all going to be nice books, complete with pages that stay in, drink, and awesome. Awesome. So I did wonder. I think it's a great question, Dave.
I mean, for me, I wanted it because I think it is pushing to be the definitive statement of the old school, and I quite like that. But for me, at the moment, it's not going to get a look in against the Black Hack for a long time. I can't see it getting a look in.
Well, I mean, I think for myself, as you know, Colin, I mean, I'm a big fan of Castles and Crusades, which takes a lot of the sort of AD&D classes and then streamlines them. So for me, when Old School Essentials came out, it was a similar vibe, like say taking those classes, but streamlining them down, because a lot of the additional complexity in AD&D, I was like, if you like it, fair enough, but I personally don't want it, but I still like some of the flavour you get from like the Bard class, the Druid, stuff like that. So Castles and Crusades, which did like a sort of 3.5 streamlined down, sort of old schoolified, I loved. And then Old School Essentials was just like a similar philosophy, but sort of taken it even further, and that is one of the things that really appeals to me about it.
Yeah.
So what else, Spencer? Since we hoodwinked you there.
I've got to say, I'm pretty tempted by the Romance of the Perilous Lands as well. That does look like a nice book, and also the Paleolithic one looks interesting. I find that. Have you got that as well, Colin?
Oh, the other Osprey one.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you see that?
And now that's he got a bit of a shine on there.
Yeah, I know. It's this lighting, mate.
What's that called? Paleomythic, did you say? What's the
Paleo? Can you see
Yes,
that? Paleomythic.
What's the sort of vibe around that then?
Well, it's a kind of
Stone and sorcery.
It's Stone Age, kind of with mythological goings on.
Review to follow on Spike Pit. I'm doing that.
Okay.
And it's,
do we know the author? Do you know anything about Graham Rose?
No.
Do we know?
No. But I know it's a 2d6 system, and for some reason, I've got a real thing for 2d6 systems. I don't know what it is, but I just become fascinated.
We noticed.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us can really say anything about that, given how long we've been banging on about Advanced Fighting Fantasy for.
Yeah.
What about if they're 2d6 systems that become 3d6 systems for combat and 4d6 if you've got advantage or disadvantage? Do you like those?
Speak to Pete on that one.
Yeah.
Well, I refer you to Osseous.
Right.
Which just sticks to 2d6 for everything.
All right.
Okay, so Colin, how about yourself? What are you hoping for underneath the Christmas tree?
Well, now I thought about this. I'll give it some thought. And do you know what? My idea is a little bit similar. Echoes a certain extent what Dave was saying about the PDF thing that you might pick up in a hard copy. But I thought, what am I really using? I don't need another system particularly. So what my problem is this, right? I've got some props here. So if you're listening and not watching, I'm holding up a D30 Sandbox Companion.
Yes.
I've got the PDF of that.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Right. And I've got
you get those on Lulu, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got it printed out at A5.
Ooh.
Okay. But it's just a bit too small.
So you want it in letter format?
So I got in touch with Chris McDowell and said, "Can you make this massive?" No, that's cool. That's cool. But that was a low blow. I apologise. But no, this is the other way. This is the other extreme. It's really, really some busy stuff going on. I don't know if you can see that, but this is only because I've taken this and tried to do what I normally do and make it small to fit in with everything else I've got. But it was a bridge too far. And Richard LeBlanc from A New Big Dragon, I think he does really nice layout. But he basically copies, the traditional kind of modules, and he takes the font and does the same type of tables and all that, but he does it really nicely. And I thought, I need to make an exception to the A5 format, get them as they were intended, get on Lulu or something when they're doing a deal. Well, I don't need to worry about that because Santa's going to sort it out. But Lulu, Lulu, and I'll probably get the D30 companion, and I might just, whilst I'm making up an order, get the the creature compendium as well.
Excellent.
But I've got most of his stuff and been thoroughly impressed with it on PDF. But it's them books that you refer to all the time, where you need to flick through the pages. They're a real pain on a PDF, those.
So I regret I don't have Tome of Adventure Design as a book. I only have it as a PDF, and I can't get hold of it as a book. So if anyone knows or wants to flog their copy, because that's one that I use all the time.
You can print it yourself on Lulu.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you see, you've done yourself now, Dave, because now you've mentioned it. Like everyone else will be out there and like buy up all the copies that are available. So
yeah, they just
everybody's got that. Surely everyone's got that one already. I mean, it's me, it's the D30s, Tome of Adventure Design. They are the absolute. You can't do without those.
That is a good one. I might ask Santa for that as well. A hard copy of that would be sweet, because it's just impenetrable on the old PDF a bit, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pete, how about yourself? When you've heard those sleigh bells disappearing off into the distance and all of the mince pies have mysteriously disappeared, what roleplay books are you hoping are going to have been left in their place?
Well, I hope it's better than the stuff I used to get as a kid, because I don't know what you were like, but when we were kids at Christmas, it was a bloody tangerine in a box. And the only game you got was the old Rock'em Sock'em robots giving it the old boxing and knocking each other's chin off.
I was going to say, Pete, you are literally one step away from being like... And in my day, we used to play out in the street with like sticks and tyres.
Yeah. But so I hope it's better than that. No, I have got a couple of things on order. My mother-in-law kindly said that I had a budget to buy whatever I wanted. So I have ordered the rules cyclopedia from Drive-Thru, print on demand.
Hey,
because that was in the I know it's BX and I've probably got everything anyway, but it was on sale on Black Friday. So
cyclopedia.
The rules cyclopedia.
Cyclopedia's got a lot more than BX.
Yeah, it's Beck Me without the eye, isn't it? Everything but immortal, isn't it?
Yeah, Beck Me without the eye.
Yeah, so we've got that.
Hey, it's the ghost of John's yet to come here. I think I should probably point out that the Rules Cyclopedia does actually have rules for immortals in. Anyway, it's back off to the spirit world with me, and I return you to your regular Christmas programming.
If we're going 2d6, then I've got the next lead on from Barbarians of Lemuria, Every When. I've got that on order. So that takes Barbarians into a generic game, modern sci-fi, you name it. That's on there too. Oh yes, what else? Space 1999, the DVD box set. I thought I had it. I called into Jason's show. He wanted an idea about sci-fi shows, so I had to go with UFO with the beautiful Gabriella Drake from back in the 70s. And I also suggested Space 1999 with Martin Landau. And I thought I had it, but I can't find it anywhere. So
I was going to say, I've just been watching that on one of the digital channels.
Yeah, I think it's on Forces TV or something like that. It's on.
I say it's on, and I think it's on the horror channel on like digital.
Yeah,
because they show like sci-fi during the day. And
but it was one of those crazy deals where you could buy season 1 on Blu-ray for 26 quid, or buy the complete series of 2 seasons for 24 quid. So I went for the 24 quid in both seasons.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just to jump in, Dave, just to let you know, apparently Goblin's Henchman bought a hard copy of the Tome of Adventure Design a few weeks ago from Noble Knight.
There we go. Hunt him down.
Great. Clearly not out of print.
And while we're online, Dave is now going to buy that. And the final thing I would like, after reading it, is Cthulhu Dark, 2nd edition.
Yes, that is on my list. Yeah.
I've got the PDF, and there's some great advice in there from Graham Walmsley on adventure design, GMing, and his design ethos, which is really good. And he's also written a good book on something to do with Cthulhu, which I've shared with all the worms about how to run Cthulhu games and the mythos. So he knows what he's talking about. But Cthulhu Dark does look rather appetizing for me.
Yeah, that's one I've got in PDF, and I'd very happily have as a hard.
But I think it's a bit pricey in hardback. I think it's about £34 from Leisure Games. But there we go. It's Christmas, isn't it? So over to you, John. What's Santa bringing you when he pops down your chimney?
Well, you know, Hopefully, when he dishes the goodies out of his bulbous sack, hopefully there'll be something in there for me. But I honestly don't know in terms of RPGs. I don't really know. 'Cause as Dave was saying, if I like something and I've got the money, I tend to just buy it. I don't think, best wait till Christmas. One of the things that is useful both on drive-through and places like Amazon, though, is the ability to like build up like wish lists and stuff like that. So quite often when I get like my relatives saying, "Oh, I'm not sure what to get you for your birthday or Christmas or whatever," you can point them at these wish lists and say, "There's a load of stuff on there. Just like get me something off there." And I normally put like a range of like cheaper books or slightly more expensive books so they can spend as little or as much as they want. And I think that's a useful thing because it saves your relatives having to like worry like, oh, are they going to like what I've got for them? Because it's like, if you've put it on a wish list, you obviously want it at least on some level. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. But because I don't know exactly what they're buying off that list, you still get that sort of interest of like, oh, what am I getting, etc. So I think that's a really useful thing. And I've got a couple of wish lists set up like on drive-through and Amazon. Some of them is like PDF stuff that I've got as PDF, but I'd like to have a hard copy for reasons I stated previously. Or it's stuff I've seen.
You can do wish lists on drive-through, can you?
I believe so, yeah.
Ah, that's good to know.
Is it just me? I know, I'm known as being a nadger fussy, shall we say? Picky.
No, known as being a nadger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
Carry on.
All right, go on.
They call me the Nudge Master.
Who invited him anyway? Who invited that Aldrich?
He's a geezer.
You know the old, when you get them print on demand books, does anybody else get that slight sort of, I wish this was like a proper book?
No, I don't care. I think they're great.
You don't care?
No.
Yeah. I know they open up, they make a lot of things accessible, definitely.
I've had better quality off Lulu than off drive-through.
Who is it? It's Lightning somewhere. It all comes from Lightning something in Milton Keynes.
Yeah, it's Amazon. It's an Amazon company, isn't it? They actually own the printing company.
I'm well happy with it. Yeah.
It's just a bit fade. It's a bit fadey, and the paper's quite often a bit cheap. And
yeah, it is if you get the standard paper. The premium's a bit better.
Yeah, I mean it's all right, and a lot of the time it's the only option. But
yeah, it's better than not having it at all.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the old toilet paper used to get in school sometimes, you can sort of see through it.
That's it, tracing paper.
Nothing sticks to it.
The reason I don't mind it is because it looks so, as someone who has these aspirations to actually do some of this stuff, it looks so achievable. Look, so I've got, I know you were waving this about, John. I'm just about to drop my Black Cat book, but I've got this one. Arcane Artifacts, Curios. Yeah,
wow,
sorry, no.
That's a massive one.
If you've got the Table Fables one, this doesn't cost much more. Yeah,
they're waving around their massive ones again.
But this, like, you flick through that. You're right. Actually, this is reasonably good quality on the inside, but you just kind of think, and I've done my podcast about this one. I think it's a good book, but you flick through this and you just think, you look at the art,
pages is it,
you just think, I could do this. You know,
how many pages is it?
411.
So it's probably about similar size to what Electric Bastion is going to be like then.
It's 1,000 magic items. Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. Little bit of art, but that's the thing, Colin. That's why I don't mind it, because I just look at that and think, well, but for the finishing of a project.
Hey, it's the ghost of John's yet to come again here. Just in case you're not aware of which magic item laden book we're referring to. We are referring to Arcane Artifacts and Curios by Madeleine Hale. We now return you to your regular Christmas programming.
Yes.
You could be selling that. You could be selling that right now.
Do you know what? And I think if you get them in a paperback like that, I think it's less of an issue. I think I get more buyer's remorse if I stump up for a hardback and realise that it's really a paperback with a hard cover.
So this was all right. This is about
Yeah,
It's about
I could
12
live-
quid, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
seemed reasonable.
Cool.
And are we going to see the OSR Anchorite D100s in a book like that?
They won't quite fill a book like that unless we do a compilation at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking you could do it as at cost price.
First one's on its way. It's yeah.
So whilst Pete was talking about old toilet paper in school, it strikes me that might be a decent segue into the kind of ghosts of Christmas past, as it were.
Well, what was the game everyone got at Christmas? You always got a game at Christmas, whether it be Monopoly, Othello. That was always a favourite. Risk.
We used to play Othello in the caravan. That's a big win. Othello.
Mastermind.
Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Trivial Pursuit. That had a real phase of being everybody's Christmas present. When was that? Was that late 80s, would you say?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to love that, Colin, because it had so many components. Like when I was a kid, that was a game that, had all the cards, it had the pizzas, it had I know they're not pizzas, it had the pizzas, it had the cheeses, it had all that. Apart from Monopoly, that was probably the game at the time when we had that was the game I'd seen that had the most going on.
I tell you what,
even though it was unplayable, I was too young to play it. I didn't know the answer to any single question, but I was fascinated by it because it had all the components.
I tell you what I did as a kid. Do you remember the old Blockbusters TV show on TV? The People's Bob. Well, I had that game, and my dad, he rigged up a bell system so we could have buzzers from both sides of the family. The little light on it and the bell. Oh, yeah.
Classic.
That's pretty cool.
And Trivial Pursuits was an almost aspirational type of acquisition because it was expensive.
It was well posh. Yeah.
It was a posh.
But I think it got to the point now. You went to a party and somebody said, "So get out Trivial Pursuit," and everybody went, "Oh no, not again."
Avocado mousse.
Yeah.
And a Trivial Pursuit, or salmon mousse, even. But it was before I'd ever heard of avocado.
And a Lambrini.
Yeah.
Did see? I got a few. Did anybody ever pick up a game called Colossal Fossil Fight?
No.
Right, I tell you, this game.
That's a dream you had. That doesn't actually.
No, mate. This is a pucker legit game, right? It was like this plastic, almost arena where it was a plastic molding. It was quite big, probably getting on for about 20 inches square, right? With two kind of two dinosaurs. You had these big, really tough dinosaurs, and you held them by the tail, and you had a little lever on the side of their thigh. They were like Allosaurus or something like that, and the lever opened and shut their mouth, and they had a pretty wicked set of big sturdy plastic teeth, right? And inside this valley you had all these real clunky chunky bones. There was rib cages, triceratops skulls, and then individual bones that looked like your classic dog bone type shape. They were all chucked in this kind of arena thing, this valley, and then by the side of each dinosaur was a cutout where you could you picked up the bones and then you had to drop them into the hole to score the point. So it was 1 point for a bone, 3 points for a rack of ribs, and 5 for a skull. and you could fight with them. So like you get them by the tail, you dive in, you grab your bone, like an excavator or a digger sort of thing. You dive it in there, you grab your bone, you're fighting, you lift it up, you're about to drop it in the thing, and the other guy can smash you in the head with his dinosaur, like knock the bone out of your mouth and then grab it. So it all starts off quite tame because there's a few bones and you're grabbing them and you're quickly putting them in your cave. And then when it gets down to the last couple, it's always got the last skull. Get out of it, boom, and you headbutt them. And then you go back. Oh, what a game, mate. That was brilliant. And it was solid. It was one of them. It didn't break. We had it for years. I'd play it now. You have a couple of beers, mate. Bring that game out. you'd have a whale of a
It
time.
sounds like it. We'll be
It
hitting
was
each other over the head
awesome.
with plastic dinosaurs.
Oh,
yeah.
But
I
they're
t-
attached. They're attached to the base.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I tell
So
you one
it's a
thing.
bit like Hungry Hippos.
Yeah.
It was, but way better. The Hungry Hippos is lame in comparison to this. This is you're gonna have to Google it up and find
Can
it.
I read out? Can I read out Rudy Riot from the thread? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Rudy Riot talking about Trivial Pursuit says a fun game to do now is pick up old copies of Trivial Pursuit or Family Feud and try to play them now. It's hilarious how many of the references fade into the ether, right? And he also says of your imagined dinosaur game that doesn't actually exist. He said
Colossal
this game
Fossil Fight.
sounds like a caveman's fever dream.
I'll tell you one game from Christmas I did remember. Remember when you sort of like 20 years ago, you used to go into Toys R Us and look at the games and it'd be Mouse Trap and Trivial Pursuit. And that was all you got. And I remember being in there one time and there was a Lord of the Rings game by a bloke called Rainer Knizia. I don't know
Ryan
if you-
Knizia, yeah.
Ryan Knizia.
He did it. I didn't know he did a Lord of the Rings game.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
he
it hit the mainstream, and it was a collaborative game. I think it must be probably late 90s, maybe. And it's a collaborative game, and it was the first game I'd ever played where you were all trying to beat the system where the sort of the darkness was coming. And I think it's been a bit lost in sort of history, that one, but what a cracking game that was.
I think it holds up. I heard it's quite a good game. I haven't played it, but he can be hit and miss, Rainer. But
Yeah.
he's done so many games, and he's got some great ones. And apparently, that is one of the better Lord of the Rings games.
And sort of the other game we used to have there was History of the World. You know that one where you're playing. It's called History of the World, but it lasts for about 7 hours because you're doing the entire history from Roman
in real time.
Yeah, more or less in real time, but yeah.
So my uncle had a game. One of you guys might recognise this, and if not, there might be someone listening that recognises it. But my uncle had a game. It was a Star Trek game. It came in a little box. I'm waving my hands around. It was like, I don't know, 6 inches by 3 inches. I don't even know what inches are, but it was something like that. And it was it was the Klingon Empire, right? And you had hexes, and you laid out hexes. So this would have been. I played this in the early 90s probably, but it could have dated back to the 80s, right? And you laid out hexes, and you were Klingons, and you had to. It was battle. Was it called Battle for the Throne? Maybe. And it was intrigue, and you had to make deals with each other, and it was fantastic, deep game. I was very young when I played it, so I don't remember it very well. But I would love to get hold of that, and I've tried to Google search it. I don't know what it is.
Have you tried
if
Board Game
anybody
Geek?
recognises that.
Try BoardGameGeek.com. That's the place where I go to for all board games. If it's been produced, it's on there somewhere.
Normally I mention stuff, Pete, and you've Googled it, and by the time I've finished talking about it, you can tell me what it is. But
It's somebody at the door delivering it.
well, all right.
That's it. Jason's bought 6 copies.
Maybe it was called Battle for the Throne, maybe.
Anybody remember Crossfire with the little ball bearing?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That was great.
That was
awesome, wasn't it?
Especially if you ping the ball bearings off.
Yeah, that was good. It's pretty big though, wasn't it? It would more or less, you needed to put it under your bed or something.
Here's another one, Mouse Trap.
Yeah, that was a disappointment for me.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
Yeah.
Never used to go off properly.
Bit like Buckaroo, another disappointing game.
Yeah, but that was better than Mousetrap. that was, as John would say, that was dank.
Oh, he's got it.
Struggle for the Throne. Yeah, that was probably it. John's found it already. Good stuff.
What about so Crossfire? If anybody doesn't know, it was a big board. You had a little gun with about maybe a dozen, maybe not that many ball bearings, and you could reload it, and you'd fire them at a big ball bearing with like a plastic collar around it, like a ring around it, and you had to kind of shoot at it, and it would get some momentum going and get it into your opponent's goal.
And your ball bearings would roll back to you, wouldn't they? And then you had to keep.
Yeah, they roll back. Yeah, and you've always got a handful of them, haven't you? And you're feeding them in, dripping them in out of your hand. And
let's go for a piece of like MB games, like old school, like classic proto role play cheese. Heroquest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All
We
them
played
plastic
hours of
miniatures, all that furniture, all them boards. Why are you in a dungeon? Who cares? You're in there. You know what the objective
I'd
is.
play it now. I
Yeah.
would play that now. And Space
got it, my
Crusade.
son's
I know
painting
you.
it, yeah.
Space Crusade.
I've broken my set. The problem, I actually reacquired it a few years ago, and then allowed that set to get scattered to the four winds. The minis went all over the place. The cards are gone. But I would play that if I had a full set. I would play that now. I love that game.
You just mentioned Space Crusade. I've got 3 copies of Space Crusade all in the same box. We used to have like 12, 14 tiles out on the table.
Yeah.
That 6-7 player game we used to have. Cracking game. Great dice system as well.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the... Cause I'm not a big board game person myself, but that was one of the sort of earliest sort of board games, sort of role play crossover games that I remember receiving. And I got a few of the different sort of like D&D style board games for Christmas. In fact, I was telling these guys before this recording, and you'll have seen this if you're on the Twitch live stream, that I got bought the game, I think it's Dragon Strike, for one Christmas, and it came with like a little video, which had like a sort of floating head of like a guy who was like the games master, and then the actual sort of stuff was like acted out with like actors and like voiceovers of the players sort of playing the characters, making the decisions. And I still remember like this it was like beyond cheesy. I mean, someone had like sliced a thick layer of like gorgonzola onto that bad boy. But I still remember it started like this guy's like floating head, like obviously like black sort of screen behind him, just his head. And I remember he started off and he was like, "Feeling brave tonight? How brave? Brave enough to battle with fierce monsters and explore dangerous dungeons." And he said, "I remember."
That's what my missus says.
So I'm a little bit worried now that when your missus is like beckoning you to bed, she's like got like a black screen behind her and just a head floating there, like feeling brave
You
tonight.
got it.
How brave! And I remember like me and my younger brother when we were
Pay
like,
no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's it. I remember like me and my brother.
I'm not him again.
We watched that video, and even when we were like dead young, we were like, "This is cheesy AF." But it was one of those things where, like, because it didn't take itself seriously, it was good fun to watch. And the game itself was your standard generic sort of simplified like D&D fare, but the sort of the video just lent it just like an extra like level of humour, and it's something I often think unfortunately is like missing from a lot of role play games now, where you know that slight sort of like tongue-in-cheek element. And I know we've talked about this with Advanced Fighting Fantasy, there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek sort of self-referential humour in it, but a lot of these early D&D board games, they weren't trying to sort of be the next evolution of role playing or do something new or innovative with it. They were just sort of like, here's a fun little game and we're going to make it fun and a little bit funny. And I remember because my parents obviously like, despairing of what to buy me for Christmas, but knew I liked sort of role play games. They'd just see one of these, like, because they didn't really know much about role playing games, but they'd see one of these D&D sort of starter board games and they'd be like, "Oh, Dungeons and Dragons, we know he likes that, we'll get him this game." And there's a period of about 4 or 5 years where every Christmas I knew I was going to get some like random like D&D board game, and I used to just love like opening them up because I was like, well, if there's miniatures or counters, I'll use them in some other games. The books will give me some ideas. They might have a board that I can use, like with Heroquest, or some like furniture pieces I can use. And the whole idea of just taking all this stuff and like cobbling it together into like something else is, I think, something I've sort of held on to from those years as I've gone into like playing like OSR games, being able to like take bits from different games and go, "Oh, I'll sort of glue this here and I'll gaffer tape this bit on here and we'll see what we end up with." And that's one of the things I love about the hobby.
And looking back, you probably think, I'd like some of those gifts again instead of aftershave and socks. That's what you seem to get as you get older.
Brazil nuts. I just used to get Brazil nuts.
Hey, there's no need to bring my nickname into this, man.
My dear old mum used to get me these toffees, like half semi-circle.
Oh yeah, toffee.
They're awesome.
We hated
They're
them,
awesome.
but we didn't
Not
have the heart.
vegan, but awesome. No?
We didn't have the heart to tell her, no, we don't want them anymore.
Tell you what we always used to get,
they're
man.
awesome.
Walnut whips. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah,
that?
Yes.
We used to get like the nice like chocolate bit with the marshmallow inside, and you'd always get them. And the first thing you do is you'd like fuck that walnut off the top and be like, "No, I'm all right." Best thing you can do with them, flick the walnut off the top, like the birds can have them in the fucking garden. I just eat the rest of it.
I just knew you were going to talk about them tonight.
And they were better back in the day.
Well, they're all smaller now. I mean, they used to be the size of like small Scottish foothills when I was young. You had to like climb up, and you had to have a team of Sherpas to like push the walnut off the top, like the boulder in Indiana Jones.
I've never eaten one of those. I don't think I've even seen one in my life.
Wow.
I think they're vegan.
No, I honestly don't think I've ever seen one.
It's one of those things where I'm not a massive fan of like chocolates or sweets or anything like that. I prefer like savoury food, but it always used to be the thing, like it wasn't Christmas unless you had like a walnut whip.
No, that's right. That was right, and that's the only time we had them as well.
Yeah,
in our house.
Yeah.
Well, we never used to have Christmas.
But we had one sock between 20 of us, and we were glad of it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
The only time you didn't want a walnut whip was after a dodgy curry, really, wasn't it?
Oh no!
Okay, what walnut whip was slang after you had a dodgy curry?
I got another classic here. Now you're gonna love this one: crossbows and catapults. Come on.
Yeah.
Hey.
Love that game.
Yeah, Goblin's henchman mentioned that on the thread. I don't even know what this is. You've got to explain this to me.
Oh, that's your proper wargaming. That's proper real wargaming. Actually firing things at your opponent.
Well,
you used to have the historically accurate forces of the brown plastic men with like their fur loincloths and their sort of Viking pointy helmets,
hats, yeah.
and the sort of the white plastic men with their sort of skull cap helmets and big shields and swords. You know, all historically accurate, obviously.
Yeah, and Planet of the Apes armor.
Yeah.
Well, is this you just line them up and shoot them down?
Yeah, pretty much.
Does it have rules?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was rudimentary rules, and you had these building block things that kind of locked together, so you could make a little fortification, like a wall.
Yeah,
you made a wall.
One of the sides had like the crossbows that like fired the tokens, and one had like little crossbows that like shot them out.
Something
if I
like
remember
that.
correctly. And you had to demolish the enemy's fortifications and like, knock over
I've never
their men.
seen this.
They had
Wow.
You have a tower. You had a tower that was a one-piece thing that was about 6 or 7 inches tall with a little flag on it. Did it have a flag on it? I don't think so. Actually, you had flags to mark out like the pitch, the battlefield. You normally would play it on the floor because it'd be a pain to play it on the table. And you stood your little men. You had your tower. You had the catapults were made into like towers, and you could get one where if it hit the door, a platform sprung up and threw the guys off the top of the tower. There was that. But the idea was to knock
that rings a bell. Yeah.
You knock over the enemy tower, and of course it had the wicked advert that everybody got all fired up about. But it fired discs, so the discs slid across the ground, and then the catapults would like launch the discs, and you could get over the enemy's wall with a catapult and knock over the tower. But I can't remember. There were some rudimentary rules, but we made up our own. See, that's what I was going to say.
Of course,
that was the birth. That was the birth of kind of when I said real wargaming. That was probably what started me off down the road.
Well,
you made up your own rulings, yeah?
Yes.
I'm watching the video now. I've never seen this.
The game I had was similar to that. It was called Armada. I just googled it now, and I'll share a picture with you lads on screen. And basically, you had it was a set of islands on a blue sort of board, and you had a cannon at each end, and you had ships that you had to get from one side to your opponent's side and get in his harbour, and you had to fire the ball bearings across the board, trying to knock his ships down, and you had to place your ships behind the islands for cover.
Well, that looks pretty sweet, that does.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's similar to catapults.
Yeah.
So crossbows and catapults had like a minotaur and a cyclops on each side.
Yeah, they were an extra. They didn't come in the base set.
Right.
That was advanced crossbows and catapults.
That's cunning marketing, yeah.
Yeah, you could get a dragon as well. The dragon was in the, what was the little message? It said something or other sold separately. Dragons sold separately.
I did think the catapults 4th edition rules were crap though.
Oh yeah, edition wars.
Okay, guys.
I hate those.
Okay, guys. So we've had the Ghost of Christmas Past. We've had the Ghost of Christmas Present. We've even had Jacob Marley as a piece of undigested walnut whip, thanks to Pete. So in terms of like the Ghost of Christmas Future, what do we think we're likely to see in the upcoming year in terms of RPGs, or what would you like to see in next year in terms of RPGs?
We're going to see big loads of OSE compatible modules, mega dungeons, rules expansions. You know, we talked before about what was it, the gangbusters, the BX gangbusters. You know, OSE has shown that pathway. You know, with the druid and illusionist rules. I think we're going to see a whole proliferation of expansions for OSE. That's my prediction. It's probably obvious.
Okay, anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I've go on, Spencer.
I was just going to say I'm quite interested in what Ben Milton's doing at the moment. He's working on kind of a follow-up to Maze Rats called Maze Knights, and it looks like he's kind of taken sort of the idea from Troika and having a large number of sort of classes that you can, you know, either randomly roll up or choose from or whatever, and but then making those slightly randomized so you don't end up with a party of, you know, with exactly the same characters. If two people roll up the same
I've got to admit,
character.
To go in that, you mentioning Troika, I've literally just got my hard copy of Troika not long ago, and obviously I know it's based on. Sorry, yeah, I dropped out a bit there. Obviously, I know it's based on sort of fighting fantasy to an extent, but so looking at Troika, my first thought was, I like the whole idea of rolling for like the backgrounds randomly, and all of the backgrounds have gone there. But literally, my first thought on reading it was like, I'd like to junk all these backgrounds and write a load of like fighting fantasy backgrounds that
there you go
that work in the same way. So you could just like roll in and be like, oh yeah, here's my role. I'm playing like a thief from Black Sand or whatever, and here's all my stats and whatever. And I'd love to run some fighting fantasy, but using that sort of
absolutely
style.
Well, you've basically got too many game books, but you could pick 36 of the game books, and just take the character from those. That'd be awesome.
Yeah
I tell you what does look interesting, the Free League's new Kickstarter coming for next year, Vaesen, which is like a Nordic horror game based on their sort of Aliens and Mutant Year Zero engine. That looks could be quite interesting.
I tell you what, I also like the look of. James Spawn is doing a second edition of his OSR game, The Hero's Journey. That's coming out in Kickstarter sort of fairly soon, in the next few months, I believe. He's given me like a quick look at an advanced sort of PDF of that, so like a sort of proto review copy, and he's made sort of more substantial changes. I mean, it's still obviously like an OSR sort of chassis. It's obviously D&D based.
I love the cover for the first edition. It was
my only, that is my, because I was talking to him about it. My only gripe about the some new edition, which I like everything I've seen so far. My only gripe is the cover design is a more, what I classify as a more sort of traditional sort of like picture that shows some like adventurers like sort of hiking off in the distance. You know, it looks great, don't get me wrong, but like yourself, I really loved that first edition sort of like Tolkien sketch style cover. But
from the 73 Hobbit kind of 37 Hobbit.
Yeah, there's a lot of I suppose not new innovations, but like cool stuff in it. Like just randomly for one, I've said I don't want to go into too much detail because they've not released details about it yet. But one of the things I do like is, rather than, as in some games, if you want to play like a dwarf or an elf, it's like, oh, you've got to have these stats to play this class or this race or whatever. In Hero's Journey 2nd edition, you pick your race, and that determines what dice you roll for your various stats. So it's not a case of like you're being restricted because you're playing a dwarf or whatever. It's a case of you choose to play a particular species, and that determines what sort of range of stats you're going to get. Which I know is a small change, but I quite like that. And there are other changes he's made into it to make it more distinct.
Yeah, that's good. So at least you can decide beforehand. Yeah, I want to play an elf, as opposed to my dice aren't good enough to play an elf this time. I'll have to play something else.
Yeah, and I mean, without, like I said, without going into too much details, because he's going to like be doing the Kickstarter. He's really sort of pushing that whole idea of sort of journeying and traveling, which was so important in Hero's Journey First Edition, because part of the idea was it was almost like his sort of love letter to like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, you know, where like the journey's a big part of the story.
Oh yeah,
and I really love. I mean, that was one of the things I liked about like the One Ring and like, the 5th edition version of that. I love games that have like travel mini games and stuff like that in. It's
cool.
Like the hex flowers and stuff like that I've been sort of getting into recently, which I think Goblin's Henchman's behind, if I'm not.
Yes,
Shout out to Goblin's Henchman. Yeah.
So,
Yes, he's still watching.
Get a plug in there.
Well, in fact, he's made a prediction. He's Carapace. He said 2020 is going to be the year of Carapace, the hard copy all art version. Look out for that.
Not. I don't want to embarrass myself, but I don't know what that is.
Which is a procedurally generated dungeon crawl through a kind of ant dungeon. Very exciting.
Oh,
you can get it now on Drive-Thru RPG, but
and the other one coming next year is Altered State, the ICRPG version of Cyberpunk. I know there's a
nice
basic quick start version at the moment, but that's coming out next year.
And
Joe's. Sorry,
I was just going to say, just to let you know, Goblin's Henchman, because I've just seen your message pop up. Unfortunately, I don't believe the chat is actually preserved on the net. Now, it might be possible for me in future to actually like include the chat on my OBS that I'm using to broadcast this. Obviously, that would be preserved on the video footage. But as far as I'm aware, the chat isn't preserved beyond the live stream. So make the most of it while it's here. But that's something we can look into in the future.
Yeah, so Eldritch Tales, put out by Raven God Games. That's Joe Salvador. I really like that book. He's an independent guy. He's got a nice eye for his stuff, some great ideas, and he's putting out the first Inquirer issue 1, which is going to be like the kind of like the zine for the Eldritch Tales. That's looking good. I know that's coming. Osprey Games will be continuing their role-playing line, and from what I've seen with Romance of the Perilous Land and Paleo Mythic, I'm a Osprey fan anyway.
Well, they always do a good top-notch job, don't they, on the sort of
exactly, because they're a publisher, they're part of the Bloomsbury Group or whatever they are.
Which is my publisher.
And they put out the quality books, and because they can do the volume, the price is good. Yeah. So that works for me. And I'll be interested to see what they come out with, because the first two launching the line are very different. And I think looking at their skirmish games, that's what they seem to do. It's like, well, we've done this, we've done that. Now let's get some of this, and then let's get some of that. So I think that'll be an interesting development.
Well, it was the same with the war game stuff. They started off with other people's products and then went off their own way, didn't they? So when they do that, I'm sure it'll be good.
Yeah, so do I. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And the other thing, I got a feeling, this is just a hunch, I don't know anything, I got a feeling that we might hear a big announcement about 6th edition for D&D.
No.
I think that might be next year, I reckon. That 5th edition's been around for a long time now. I think they might announce a 6th edition, and I think they might even go get more and more rules for like online play and streamers and actual plays and all this. I think it's going to be that sort of I don't know, but
this could be a scoop.
What's your Interesting. I think they're still selling those rule sets. I think they're still expanding the base that they can sell the core to. So I don't
Yeah,
reckon
it
they're
might.
gonna.
No,
they're
it might
gonna
not
flip
be
that
called.
yet.
Yeah, it might not be called. I don't see. Like, I don't
Right.
think. I may have misspoke there because I don't actually think it'll be another edition, but I think it'll be like.
A new launch or a new.
Yeah. So like
Interesting.
the DMs and the players redone.
The online platform that
Yeah.
they always thought they would have back in the 4th
Yeah.
edition days, maybe. Yeah.
Beyond.
Beyond.
But I reckon they haven't exhausted selling the core set yet. So I don't.
No, they probably haven't.
Interesting. Well, look, controversy amongst the worms. 2020 will tell. 2020 will decide this particular controversy.
Well, it's going to be interesting what Fandom do as well. Now they've purchased the Cortex license because they're looking at putting lots of resources into that and trying to get an online presence to sort of compete with some of the major RPGs. So that'll be interesting how that pans out.
Well, the Cortex.
Yes, yeah. Fandom, who you used to own Wikia, have pumped lots of money into it and got new project managers on, and they're looking at some massive sort of online system as well. So
I don't see it making a massive.
I don't see it, but I think they're going to try and push a lot of money into it to see if they can do something.
Cool.
So now that you've heard about gifts and Spike Pit's red trousers, drop us a message by email or browser. We hope that your Christmas is full of joy, laughter and cheer. And we hope that you'll join us on Purple Worm next year. So set down your laptop, computer and pad. Spend Christmas with siblings, family, mum and dad. May you be blessed with days long and bright. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.